All right, everyone. Welcome to our Level 8 Q&A. We're going to be discussing the community and workforce development, which is super important for your applications as they're two necessary steps that you have to complete. We always like to set off with celebrations. Of course, it's the new year. So if you're in the chat, drop where you're dialing in from. And if you have any wins that you want us to shout out, please feel free to put that in the chat, and we'd love to celebrate you. As we know, navigating the cannabis licensing process can be quite difficult. If you're here for the first time, welcome. This can be a really challenging process to go through. Getting a cannabis application submitted to our New Jersey Cannabis Regulatory Commission and applying for an adult use cannabis license. So get ready. That is exactly what the New Jersey Cannabis Training Academy is for. We're here to give you that education and that real life experience through these Q&As to help you navigate the different hurdles that you might expect. So in a moment, I'm going to call on our instructor, Tahir Johnson, to join us again for our Level 8. I'm going to let him introduce himself, and then we'll do a brief overview of the course. After that, we'll go through some pre-submitted questions. And if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat and or in the Q&A. And then after that, if we have any sort of general questions just around the entire portal or anything you're having experience in throughout any of the levels, we can do that towards the end. We have a short amount of time, so for the beginning, we're asking you to keep your questions geared towards the topic at hand. And we really want to get into those because, again, I can't continue to emphasize how important of a section this is for your application. And we want it to be strong. We have one of the best people to write a cannabis application with a lot of experience in job development and social responsibility. So I'm so excited for this Q&A. You guys are going to learn a lot. So let's get started. So with that, I am going to bring on our instructor and guest for today, Tahir Johnson. I wish I could do like a round of applause situation. Tahir, a lot of people know who you are in the industry. You now open Simply Pure Trenton dispensary. You've done a lot of work in social equity. Truly a trailblazer. Before I even get to your introduction, I want to let everybody know the connection here. Tahir was actually one of the first people I encountered in my cannabis journey. I went to Howard University. He went to Howard. I just called him up and said, hey, I'm trying to get involved. And he literally spilled the beans, gave me all the information, answered all of my questions. And that might have been now like 6 years ago.
Time ago now. That was some years.
Exactly. It's been some time indeed. So with that, Tahir, I'll pass it over to you. Please give us an introduction of yourself, everything you got going on, and tell us a little bit about your course.
For sure. And it's a pleasure, especially to be introduced by you. Thank you, everybody. My name is Tahir Johnson. I'm the founder and CEO of Simply Pure Trenton. We're an adult use cannabis dispensary here in my hometown, Trenton, New Jersey. Well, actually, technically Ewing Township, where we're located, but we're right on the border. We are now coming up. I'm a couple days away from my 6-month anniversary, being open for 6 months. And, I'm super excited that I get to teach this course. Although there's so many different parts of what it takes to make a successful cannabis application to open a cannabis business, this workforce development and community development is probably the most near and dear to my heart. For me, getting to come back home and open up a business, this was the part that was really the biggest, to be able to create good jobs, to be able to focus on diversity and inclusion, and mostly to be able to build a business like the way we know the cannabis industry can be. Especially because I had been one person who had been working in advocacy and like the social front for a number of years. I wanted the opportunity to practice what I had been preaching and also to show companies that it could be done. And it's a great strategy to lead with taking care of your community. So excited to get into all the questions you have, everything you answer. And I'm always here for any way I can be a resource. So let's get into it. P, what you got for me?
All right, let's get into it. So in our level 8 course, you're one of the first phases people encounter before getting a level 9. And really in here, we're focusing on job creation, the workforce development plan that you use to submit for your application, as well as the community impact plan and social responsibility plan that you need to submit for your applications. I'm assuming both, of course, your CRC application and the one for your municipality. So we're going to separate it. I want to first start off with like job creation and workforce development, especially because now you had to do it. You had to hire. So you have really the knowledge of like building the plan, writing it out on paper, and then implementing it with what your hiring processes were, and if you were able to fulfill some of the things you had in your plan. So my first question is just, how does workforce development even play into securing your license and your application? What does that part of the application really call for?
Right. Well, the workforce development piece is really important. It's actually one of the areas on the entire application that's worth the most points. And that's because the CRC really wants to see that they're giving businesses that are not only of the community, but are taking care of the community. That was something that was very clear from the time that we were all working together to even make cannabis legalization happen. It's something that people really wanted to be able to look out for the communities, especially those communities that have been most harmed by the war on drugs, and folks who typically don't get opportunities, as we're building this wealth. And that meant being able to not only social equity, but also diversely owned cannabis businesses, women-owned cannabis businesses, disabled veteran cannabis businesses, not just being that yourself, but how are you going to incorporate all these different groups into the business as you build it? So that's really important. So the first, going back to my days of being a financial advisor before cannabis, I'll say everything starts with a plan. This is one of those things where you really want to have it very detailed, really thought out. And what that looks like, first I'll start with what does your community look like? Your cannabis business should really reflect the community. And again, those different groups that you want to impact. And so it starts out with your workforce development plan. You want to target who do you want to hire? You want to know what does that person look like? What type of wages do you want to pay? What type of benefits do you want to be able to offer? All of those are things, but what type of training and development do you want to offer? Like not just cannabis that helps them be better at their job, but I also believe that you want to help people develop skills that can help them in their career, both inside and outside of cannabis. But also really focusing on that education, because the better educated your team can be, cannabis is really complex, right? It's more than just saying, oh, you want to get high, take this. It's letting people understand like different cannabinoids, different terpenes. What does that look like? Being able to educate indica versus sativa, the retail process. What you coach your team on and what you teach them to do, that will also be what they prioritize when they speak to your customers. So you want to build a team that not only can educate your customer base because they want to educate them on the products, but also the reason it's important to reflect the community is so that people see themselves in the people that you're shopping with. I can tell you the people that will come to your store, or if you're a manufacturer or cultivator that will buy your products, they span every race, religion, age, sexual preference, all those things. And so you want to be able to meet people where they are, not just people that look like you. So you want to build a diverse team so that people can feel comfortable, doing business with you. And I guess I'll start with that. I know there's layers and everything that we can go to, but if I don't stop somewhere, I'll be talking for an hour straight on each question.
No, it's cool because you just answered like 4 or 5 questions, which like makes sense. Like the workforce development plan that you submit, it should not be like something you do towards the end. Like, yes, you're building and you're dreaming, you're trying to figure out what your team would look like, but I think it takes a lot more thought than people initially think. Did the municipality that you work with require any sort of workforce development specific in terms of like percentage of people you hired from community, or, being in an impact zone? Were there any other sort of like regulatory things you had to have in place for your workforce development plan?
Right. So my particular municipality didn't have a requirement that people be from the municipality, But one thing to keep in mind, I can tell you, I know that it was one of the big reasons that I mean, if I'm being honest, that I was able to be chosen to be here. Not only am I from, like I said, I was born and raised in this municipality. I also have a number. Most of my employees are from Ewing or Trenton, so Mercer County. So we hired from home, and I'm from here. So people want to see how not only how are you going to come make money in your community, but how are you going to give opportunities to folks from your community? And that was really a big thing. Also, if you're going to if you want to go for the impact zone designation, then you need to make sure that at least 25% of your staff that you hire that can also qualify you to meet the impact zone designation. So for my business, we had ownership from the area, but also, you can also meet that requirement from hiring people from there. So if you really
Yeah.
want to look at ways that you can have your application get the most priority, that's something that's really important. For me, I wanted to hit the trifecta, and that was that I qualified for social equity. I was an impact zone business, a diversely owned business. So we met all three criteria. So again, trying to make sure that you're hiring people from where you want to do business can be one of the best things you can do to also qualify you for that impact zone designation, in addition to helping you with your business. Something that I would also add is that even once you get open, I'll say your workforce development plan doesn't change because Lord knows, once you open, so many things happen. Let's just say what you put to paper, you may have to pivot. So just every plan that you do within your application, again, don't just think that you need to do this to get open, but just for purposes of planning a business, you actually want to make a plan and follow it.
I mean, that's a perfect segue, like talking about what you put on paper versus what happened in real life. So you opened, how long have you been open now?
I opened on July 19th, 2024.
I 19. So you've been open for quite some time now, a couple months. And I know you you took your workforce plan and you had to implement it. Were there some things that you figured you had to change around? What would you sort of give people as a heads up from going from application to real life?
One thing that I would say that I learned, and the biggest thing was that when I started, I wanted to hire because I was so passionate about my community. I wanted to hire so many people, right? I want to bring in everybody, pay everybody, give everybody jobs.
Yeah,
But I think with the workforce development plan, it's also important to, and this is a completely separate section, but it's important to watch your pro forma, like, your projections, like how many employees do you need to actually meet the needs of the business, right? So for example, when I first opened up, it used to make me sick. I would walk in here and it was barely no customers, but I had plenty of employees, standing all around. And as much as I hated it, I actually had to reduce my staff size to meet the needs of the business. But I'll say with the plan, and that's why it's important to plan, because I think had I taken some extra steps with the planning, I would have known that I was overstaffed. And it's really painful to have those conversations because you're talking about real people, like their livelihoods, their families that depend on this. So I would say getting it right in the inception from the plan could also help you avoid some like tough conversations and unpleasant conversations down the line. So I would say keep your finances in mind when you're doing this plan as well, because again, like me, like I said, my goal is I wanted to hire everybody, pay everybody because I cared about my community. But you do want to pay people good, you want to hire the right people, but you want to make sure that you're hiring the right number of people like for your business.
exactly. That honestly is one of the greatest points I've heard when it comes to business building in cannabis because you have to build your business to meet the market's needs. You don't want to really assume the market's needs. You can to a degree, like that's what all of your plans are, assumptions of what is going to happen. But then you really need to study the market. You need to go to other dispensary owners. You need to hear from people like Tahir and say, okay, well, maybe I need to start small and grow, because it is. Workforce development is huge because you're not just saying, oh, here's a job, here's a job. Cannabis has high turnover and also can be very tricky depending on where the market leads. So it is, I can imagine, difficult for an owner to have those tough conversations. But planning for it could be what helps with that. Now, in terms of like pen to paper and further implementation processes, what were your thoughts, or did you have to hire like outside HR teams to kind of come in and do like, you know, the general training? Was that something that folks should plan for or budget for? Is that something you want to bring online prior to, or is that something, you know, once your business is on, you need to launch an HR staff, or can you as an owner serve as HR?
Yes, so and I'm glad you said that because I'm going to give two answers to this because I'll say this is not one, I'll say it's not a one size fits all for everybody, right? When I started out, I did have an HR consultant that helped me with my business because again, this was the first business that I've ever owned, and there are so many different things from like there are state requirements from training that people have to have, like whether we're talking cannabis or not cannabis. You want to make sure that you're set up properly with like your payroll. You want to make sure that that you're being cognizant of workers' rights, like you know, all of these different things. So for me starting out to make sure that I had all my ducks in a row, I thought that it was important for me to bring on an HR consultant to help me get everything up and running. Now that I'm actually open, and I've been open a couple months, I've actually taken over like doing payroll, those things myself. The payroll company that we work with, as part of my what I pay for, we actually get like an internal HR consultant that can help me with anything that I need. So I felt like I didn't need the overlap, right? Because I'm already paying these people for payroll and I get an HR consultant with that. I sat back and I said, it doesn't make sense for me to keep paying an outside third party to do that. So as you review like your different options that you have for payroll and HR, I would definitely look at if you can find a company that can like provide the service like all in one. I think it'll save you some money. But I think for me also, I love really getting to know my business. Like I love knowing exactly what the payroll is, like looking at it. And I'll say what I have found as an owner, if you have the time and you can do it, the more hands-on that you are with everything, just the better you're going to know your business and it's going to grow. Because it feels different, right? At one point earlier on, somebody would just send an email, this is the weekly payroll. Do you approve? And I would be like, yes. But now I'm going there actually looking at it. I can say, oh, Precious, you know, she worked 10 hours. Oh, when you start doing the payroll, like this person is late, or this tends to be late when you schedule them in the morning. This, you know, you can, there's so many different things that you see, the more hands-on that you are with your team, like in everything with your workforce. The other thing that I'll say is I legitimately think of all my employees like family. So the more clear that you can be, set expectations, like all of those things, it just really helps. Again, because you set the stage in the beginning rather than on the back end having to, I guess, come back and make changes. But even then, as good as you prepare, you will still have to come back and make some changes. I promise you that.
Yeah, these are gems. We have a question from the chat. It says, it sounds like your workforce plan was born out of a deep passion and heartfelt commitment, and that speaks to a mission statement which goes to the heart of creating a brand. How important is it to do this upfront work, I guess, that you're speaking of, before you do your application?
Oh man. So let me tell you, I think where it's important to do this upfront work is especially when you're approaching a municipality. Think of it this way, right? In Ewing Township, for example, they were giving out 3 dispensary designations. Imagine how many people came to them from all over the world, everywhere, saying the same thing. Oh, I'm going to be the best. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Like, right? I think really showing that you know your community, that you can speak to like what's going on in the community, like that you know people from the community, and that you actually have community support. Like, right, all of those things being on the ground makes such a difference because man, Kendrick Lamar's line was about you're not a colleague, you're a colonizer, right? You really want to be a colleague. You don't want to be a colonizer.
Yeah.
You don't want to come into what town you're coming in and make it feel like you're coming in. So the better that you can say, hey, like I know these people. And by the way, people from the town want me here. It just makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great way to really sum it up. I remember what the municipality stage when it was set looked like, and people did come from all over trying to chase some of these municipalities down And I think the ones that did have a deep-seated connection to community that kind of like was a little bit further outside of the norm, which leads to my next question, like, how do you go above and beyond on your workforce plan? Like, we know some of the bare minimums that you have to put there just to say you check the box, but is there a way to go above and beyond on your workforce plans that still prevent you from having to maybe like overdo it, or like, have those tough conversations, or improperly plan? So like, yeah, how do you go above and beyond and say, I want to stand out from the fray, but in a very conducive business model that makes sense?
Sure. So I think it is, in terms of workforce development, I started thinking about the community plan, but I'll stick to workforce development. So with workforce development, I really think that it all like is going to come down to, again, one thing that you can do, you can get commitments from people, like letters of intent that they're going to work for you even before you start working there. And so if you can actually, because that makes it concrete, right? With everything with the plan, as much as you can take the I'm going to do this out of there and say I'm doing this or I have this, it makes all the difference in the world, right? So if you can go to the township A and say, hey, township A, I would really love to do business here. By the way, because like what I took it a step further, like I had LOIs from all the people, I had copies of their IDs, like their address. So again, you can see this is a African-American woman that lives on such and such street here in your town, right? Like remove as much as you can, anything in the application, remove the I'm going to do this, I'm about to I'm doing this, and I have this. The more that you can show the concrete evidence and data that you really have people from your community that are about to be part of your team, I think that really helps. Because the two go hand in hand. Again, you don't necessarily have to wait to do something for your community. You don't have to wait to be open to do that. I donated a small amount of money. It was $500, but I donated money to Ewing Township Department of Recreation before I was even open with my business, because again, that was something I was passionate about. I played Ewing Rec basketball growing up. So I wanted to be able to give that money. And so the more you can have that real connection to your community, and really act on it, it goes a long way.
That's a really good way to put it. I played it for my rec basketball teams as well. Yeah. And, now that I'm in the cannabis industry, all I want to do is give back. So, like, I think putting that into applications and being able to speak to your experiences in your application actually makes sense.
And I think you can really speak to the municipality as well, right? I know you got your moderator hat on, but I think this is important because even what I like rewinding the clock back, what I see with you and Tyon talking about like where you will be, multiple people are going to come in, right? Like the hometown hero part, even if you're talking about your town, that can take you so far. But when it comes to cannabis, a lot gets involved. Right? You got these political people that come calling shots. You got money that's coming in the call, like people that will have more money than you, more political connections than you. So what you have that works for you, you really got to lean into that, because I promise you, somebody's out there that's plotting on your same spot that will pull trigger
on it.
Plan that you can't necessarily do. So you got to really show that you're about the community, because they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that homework. They're not going to go that extra step. They're just going to say, I got money or I know such and such. So you really showing that about your community can really help.
That makes sense. And actually, that's a perfect segue into our community impact plan and how you prepare for that on your cannabis licensing, because this is very important, right? The idea of cannabis is that, from the war on drugs, the hardships caused to Black and brown communities, marginalized communities, especially the breaking up of the Black family. You can think about the prison pipeline system. A lot of it stems to cannabis. And the point of the industry was to create restoration. At least, no, it wasn't the point. But one of the points of the industry should be and has to be creating restoration to those communities, and all communities, from cannabis sales, so on and so forth. I think New Jersey was really intentional about that. So can you speak to your process for putting together your community impact plan for your application? how did you put it together? What were you thinking? And how can like new entrepreneurs who want to put together that plan, what should they really zero in on?
Yep. So I'll answer your question and I'll start because the person in the chat asked something very similar. So they were asking if you don't live or you're not from or around the town where you want to go, how do you do that? How do you learn about the community? And I'll say it really is going to sound like a simple basic answer, but I would say go there, right? Like if you're not from there, go there, just visit,
Yeah.
right? Like spend a weekend there, talk to some people, go to the local bar, have a beer, right? See what it's like. Come to the local dispensary if there's one there already. But in all honesty, a great thing you can do, I highly encourage, go to the city council meetings, even if it's nothing about cannabis on the agenda. Like, show that you're a concerned citizen when it's not talking about cannabis. That's how you do it. Show up to the city council meeting when they're talking about like, the bridge or the potholes or the school.
Yeah.
Like, show up to the city council meetings and really be an engaged person. Some of the city council meetings these days are, I don't know, I know we're kind of far out COVID, but at one point people were even having them on Zoom. So you can show up that way, but it's nothing like going in person, shaking somebody's hand, telling them who you are. And I honestly say that's the best way. Like, good old fashioned in person, let them know who you are and why you want to do it. If you can't, um, just find the time, maybe plan. I know many people may have a full-time job that you're working outside of this, but maybe like, again, make the plan to do that, even if you have to set the time aside. Again, these are likely going to be offices where people, if you're talking like trying to find a mayor or like people in the offices, that's going to be a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 type of thing. But the city council meetings are typically going to be like after work, probably like once a month, maybe twice a month if you're in a big town. So you can just find out when it is and plan to go there. That's what I would say would be the best thing. Um,
Getting
going
back to
back.
my question, I'll remind you, yeah, like what do you need to zero in on for your community impact plan? Does like the application tell you, like, what are you going to do for rec? What are you going to do for schools? Or do you have to really conjure all of that up?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So with your community development plan, you definitely want to. I think you want, so I'll start here. So from the beginning, at least two, if you will, at least if you have a dispensary, 2% of the tax revenue that you give is going to go back to the town anyway. But it's like, what are you going to do above and beyond outside of that? Um, so for me, what community plan looked like, like I have it's, and so let's talk environmental because there's a number of different layers, right? Environmentally, I have a example. One of the things I did, I put an EV charger in my parking lot. We're one of the few people in town that have an EV charger, right? So you want to talk about environmental sustainability. How are you going to make the environment a better place? I would say that creating jobs and how you're going to help the community, that's also, it might be counterintuitive and you're thinking of them separately, but how you want to hire people from the community is also a part of your community development plan as well. The other thing is, what are you going to do to positively impact the residents of the community, even outside of when they're shopping at your dispensary? So one of the big things that I do here is I've done free expungement clinics, right? Helping people from the community get to clear their record. That's really big. Arts and socially, right? Not having to do with criminal justice at all. Like, how are you going to get back to the community? Well, here we do, in the summertime when it was warm, we were doing jazz on the grass for free. People could come out and listen to
With your
jazz.
dad.
Like, you know what? Yeah, I happen to have my dad be a but that's another one. Use what you got in your already in your circle, right? My dad's a jazz singer. My mom is a dance teacher, and she happens to have owned her dance school here in town for 30 years, right? I use them all the time. Like, everybody in town knows my mom. So, right, if you can, like, if you have some special talent or something that you can give back, again, it's not always money, right? Like giving a free jazz concerts that people come listen to music when there's not a lot of things going on in town. People love it. Like the mayor, like, asks about it, right? Like, I've had city council people show up to the jazz events, like expungements, job fairs, right? Like, we did a job even before I was open. We did a job fair. Um, here in town so that other cannabis businesses could hire people. And this was 2 years before we were open. Uh, man, there's like, what can you do? Like, I mean, we give out ice cream like sometimes, right? We have food trucks here. It's like
Yeah.
literally all the things that you can do. Like, what are you going to do for the community to give back? You know what I mean? Just literally giving back. Oh my God, the list is so long that you can do. Like anything fly that you ever thought of,
The
like I can
plan.
do this, just do it. You know?
Yeah. And I think the community plan is really where entrepreneurs get to show a little bit of who they are and what they're passionate about, what this overall venture means to them, right? It's one of those few opportunities in the application where there isn't a sort of like safeguard of what you have to do. And I'm sure on the municipal side, they're very eager to see. So I have two questions for you. There's one in the chat and one I want to get to, but how do you make sure that, yeah, folks can do all of these things, ice cream and community events. How do you make sure that some of the work you're doing is actually impacting the community? Rather, what sort of milestones are you using to kind of track that impact? So like the work you're doing is supporting the community.
Great question. With everything, track, measure, all these things. For me, the reason I chose like expungements is because that was something near and dear to my heart. And because of my conversations that I was having with people on the ground, I knew that it was something our community needed. So for example, I've worked closely with an organization called Salvation and Social Justice that's here in my community. And so I knew that, I grew up here in Trenton, right? So I knew anything criminal justice. I know how many people, how we were getting arrested, like how cannabis was impacting us. So I've had people here cry, right, seeing this come off their record. So I knew how impactful this could be because my community was so devastated by the war on drugs. But I'll say ask around, right? And this also answers that question. Some of those people will be the ones to tell you what your community needs, right? The person on city council.
The question, so folks know, they said, the question in the chat said, should we introduce ourselves to council people, police chief, fire chief, CTA ahead of applying, and how soon do we tell them that we want to open a cannabis business?
Yeah. So think of it like, right? Best believe the local pastor in town knows what type of problems people are having that people need help from, right? Best believe the police chief knows because he's dealing with crime out there. The PTA, that's a touchy one. Like I always try to, with schools or where you'll encounter people that are under 21, you always want to be like delicate or sensitive because you don't want to do anything that seems like you're trying to market to minors. But for example, here I didn't do anything with the PTA, but like the Teachers Association, the local, I dang sure went to the superintendent and said, "Oh, did you know I give a discount to teachers?"
Got the teacher discount that you do.
But again, that's another thing that you can offer that gives back to the community. Like those folks, first responders, we give them a discount. Not only students but teachers, they get a discount. Like all those things are different ways to give back. And I would say, what you're saying that you're opening a cannabis business like versus a deli or something else, I would say is how you feel comfortable. But I could say it, you want to be transparent because they're going to find out eventually, right? Now, if it's just one of those things where if you want to build a relationship, and in my case, I didn't have to do this because, again, I was from here. So people already knew who I was. Like my mom was a local business owner, like, so different things like that. But one of the things that I think that you can really do is, yeah, I would just say that you want to be transparent. You want to tell them what you're doing. The sooner the better, because when they see that what you can also do is change the perception of cannabis, right? By telling them when they see that you're a good business person, upstanding citizen that wants to do all this for the community, you should own them and let them know that it's cannabis because people may have this stigma. They may think, oh, these cannabis people are stoners or they're this, or they may think it's all big corporations. When you show them that you're a regular person that really cares about this and tell them what you want to do, then I think that that will resonate for them. And that's will be what actually gets you, actually gets you in the door and actually helps. So I think you want to tell them as soon as you feel comfortable sharing it. And for me, I call it coming out of the green closet, right? Like I know when most of us have this point, whether you're in your career or you're in business, where you want to do it, but you're not quite ready to say it and be like, oh, I'm cannabis. Like when you're ready to tell people this is what I do, or this is what I'm doing, or what I want to do here, it will help things advance much further. Because when you don't tell them what you're trying to do, you can't really, push it forward. So when you're ready to jump out there, put yourself out there, I think stuff will really start moving fast for you.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. Like I've seen it. I've been to a ton of municipal meetings, especially earlier on when folks were just getting their licenses. And it felt like a smart move to just directly go up to your council people and say, hey, I'm such and such, and I'm super interested in building a cannabis X here. And, this is something I'm passionate about. I'm interested to get to know the community. I'm interested to get to know the community's needs and see how I can be a good partner for this community, especially like to the earlier question, if you're not from there. And if you definitely are, like, you definitely want to come with like, hey, I live here, I'm from here. I understand how big this opportunity can be. I want to be a part of that change that can help the city, again, outside of that 2% tax. And I think we're starting to see some of that, which is a question I have that sort of connects the job piece with the community piece is like, well, how does your team help support and implement some of your community initiatives? Do they make some community initiatives? And can you create some initiatives that weren't in your original plan? Like, can you just kind of go off the cuff and say, you know what? I feel like doing this today. Like, do you have the freedom to do that, even if it's not in your plan?
Oh yeah. So the good thing is you should probably do everything that you said you would do in your plan, but you can also do things that weren't in there at all, right? Like if you think of anything new that comes, I say just do it, right? Like for example, one thing that we started doing that wasn't in my business plan or community plan, but we started doing it because it fit with everything else we were doing is our roundup program with 40 Tons Foundation. So at my dispensary, when customers spend, we give them the opportunity to round up the change, and we give that to 40 Tons, which is an organization founded by my friend Corvain Cooper, who was previously serving life in prison for cannabis. And they take those funds and they give them to people who are currently still incarcerated for cannabis. Right now, that wasn't something that was ever in my business plan, my community plan. But as the opportunity arose itself, I said, you know what? I want to do this and implement this at my dispensary. The other thing I'll say is you should think of everybody on your team as a brand ambassador. So they're going out into the community also telling them about what you're doing, the things you're doing. And again, if there are people that are from the community, that's just an extra cherry on top. So you definitely want to focus on that. Like at my dispensary, I actually have a role. That's Jasmine is my outreach coordinator. So she's the one that's responsible mostly for like going out in this community, coordinating with people doing that. Now she's also a cannabis advisor. That's what I call my bud tenders. We're not big enough for that yet for just a person to be focused on community in that role. But one of the reasons that I chose her is because again, she is born and raised here in the town also, and she was already active, like volunteering, doing community work at different things. So you have somebody that's passionate about it, but also already in these networks, like doing these things, and she would be doing it on her time away, even if she wasn't doing it for us. So I think that is finding people that are passionate about it and getting your team involved as well is super important.
I think it's like a cheat code, honestly. It makes sense because, again, if you have to start with a limited staff and just kind of grow into your business, I can imagine having to want a person to do a singular thing all the time and like let that be their focus versus like using your staff and putting them in like dual positions, tri positions, which also kind of helps them grow. I've learned that, I think some of the best employers have their employees fall in love with their vision, not necessarily, just waking up, coming to work, but like you really get the best out of people when they believe in the vision of what this overall company is trying to do. And I think that's exposing them to more of the company, right? Not just, hey, stand here, and cash in, cash out transactions. But hey, come with me for this important meeting. Hey, let me give you autonomy to set this program up and use your background and put that in. I really do think you get fuller buy-in from your workforce when you create that atmosphere. And I think that's something you've done really well with your staff. Because I see them doing I see them in the jackets and the sweatshirts some days. They walking with you through. You guys come through as a team when they're at conferences. You can tell you guys are rolling as a unit. Doesn't feel like there's one person doing just a singular thing. And I think that's a great cheat code for new business entrepreneurs in cannabis to kind of like mimic.
Well, and let me tell you, Precious, that what you said is a major key right there, because again, I'll say use your employees. I don't mean using a negative way. Use them for their talents, like what they have. I can guarantee you that that person that you have that's a bud tender can probably do more. Like I think of one of my employees is like a tech computer genius. The hard anything I need some of that, I don't even do it no more. I ask him. I have one employee that loves visual merchandising, like doing displays, design every holiday. She's doing our Christmas tree or a theme. Like I talked about jazz with the community stuff. I have another person who's like really attention to detail. So that's the person that I have doing the inventory stuff. Like she was like a front facing customer person before, and now she got her doing inventory. She loves it, right? Like it's you identify. I have another person who's like a streamer, like outside of work. So he's working on developing social media content. Like use people's skills that they have, and I guarantee you it will for one, it'll make them enjoy the job so much better. But you'll find that people have these talents that can help you in business that you may have never even imagined or thought of.
Yeah, no, I've seen that work in numerous ways, and it also just helps that person, no matter what their aspirations are, right? They get an opportunity to explore and build upon that. One question I have for you, because I really do think, with the applications, a lot of this can be templated. We talk a lot about this in our other Q&As, how some portions of the application, there are templates. People can just kind of like fill in the gaps, move things around. How would you recommend people really approach the community impact plan? Like, is that a template that you can just sort of reorg, a couple bullet points? What sort of, you hire so many people for your application, probably for different aspects. I know some people that do, some people do it themselves. Shout out to you. I am one of those people. But yeah, I really want you to speak about just like how people should approach the actual pen to paper of their community impact plan. Because something for me it doesn't really give template. Like, of course, there's a standard on how like you write things, 12-point font, whatever. But I don't know. I just feel like it may not be one of those things you want to copy and paste the template from.
Yeah. I don't think it is, because again, now if we're talking about just for the purposes of the CRC, can you have all the elements of what they're looking for and check a box? I mean, technically, I guess the answer would be yes, right? But like in terms of going to a municipality, like because you have to get the municipal, that might get you a conditional license, right? Like pass you the phase one. But if you
The
want
first
to
approval step.
right, if you want to actually get to getting open, where you're going to have the community buy-in and do all of that, I would say it's going to be really tough. I think this is something that you really want to have the passion about and really, and really think about. Because you want to find what's going to set you aside from other people. And if you just did copy and paste the same, if you turn in the same thing that Precious did, like that's not, they probably seen it before, right? Like if you don't do something unique, it's not going to rise to the level of, what you need for this. So I would say with this one, you really want to think it through. And I'll say for people who are not that creative in writing, if you can think of the concepts and what you want to do, but you don't know how to say it, I promise you, if this might be a key for somebody, if you're not already doing it, please use ChatGPT. It can take the most, like, I don't even, like, you just got to know what you're trying to say and type it, write it, and then use ChatGPT and do it, and then expand on that. I'm gonna tell you, ChatGPT wasn't out yet when I did my application, but I have since done another application. And again, I didn't use it to write the whole thing, but I said everything I wanted to say and had ChatGPT remix it. and it was approved. So I can tell y'all, you can do this. Use technology. Like if you know what you want to say and you know like this is your plan and you just don't know how to find the words to eloquently say what you want to say, I mean, I would definitely use artificial intelligence to get you ahead in business. It's 2025, y'all. You got to use the tools you got. Everybody's an excellent writer. Everybody can be a excellent writer these days if you use the tools, because that's no longer an excuse. You on mute.
Oh, I was gonna say I absolutely agree. Like it is 2025. We are in the digital age. You can't even deny it. I think AI is going to be a game changer in the cannabis industry, even outside of the licensing and application front. We're seeing it as a game changer in cultivations, like how people monitor temperature checks and water the plants and do so many other things. We're seeing it as a game changer in machinery around cannabis. And you know, definitely a love-hate relationship when it comes to that, because you don't want to necessarily put people out of jobs. But specifically in the application process, there are tons of tools, and even on marketing and social media, which I wish, you know what, I'm going to bring you back for that, because you are one of the marketing whizzes when it comes to drawing attention and building out what your social media plan and all that looks like for your dispensary, definitely to set yourself apart. And I know sometimes AI can be really helpful for that, right? Video making, documenting the whole nine. So you actually just gave me an idea. I'm going to bring this back to the staff and see how we have an
Because
idea.
you really just have to start with the idea, right? Whether we're talking about content and that's written, visual, whatever. If you have the idea, it can help you take it further. Like I use it so much now that if I write a sentence and say, "Hi, my name is Tahir Johnson," I dang near probably put that in Chat GPT to remix it to make sure I said that the best way.
They can give it a little je ne sais quoi, a little
You know, they might be like, oh, I didn't think to say it like that, or this will make me sound cool. You know what I mean? So like literally, I'll say use it, y'all. People are definitely using that.
Wrapping up here, so I want to give space for a last question, and it's just really just like any advice. Like you are one of the newer operators in the space. Like, what are you seeing? And not necessarily related to just, you know, workforce and community, but like, what are you seeing? What should people look out for? What would really save people some growing pains if they had a conversation with you?
Yes. So I will say uh the biggest thing of all of this is determination. Like whatever plan you put together, uh I can almost guarantee that it will be harder than what you thought. It'll take longer than what you thought. It'll cost
Yeah.
more than what you thought. All of those things. But when that happens, you know what? Keep going. Write it down, do whatever you got to do, go cry and come right back if you got to, right? Like, don't give up. And I would say, even when you get open, uh, it's the finish line, but it's really the starting line. And it gets like it's tough, right? But it's so worth it. And even like I said, that determination is what keeps you through, because on the days where you're not hitting the goal that you thought you were going to hit, or something's not going right, you want to go back to, and this is where these things that you wrote on paper, because I'll tell you, I recently saw something like one of the business plans I wrote about my business, about how I'm going to do this, how I'm going to do that. Like I'm going to hire people, pay them $20 per hour, do that. And I looked at that and it had me almost in tears, like just to say that I really did this, right? So it is just remember the fuel of what you like, you know, what's fueling these dreams to make you want to do it, and hold on to that even when it gets tough. And like I said, because this is what we're working on, uh, what you have the opportunity to do here is really big. When we talk about taking something that was illegal, something that people were locked up behind, and now you have the opportunity to turn that on its head, not only create a business, but one that can create opportunities for those same people who were just being put behind bars, having their kids being taken away, really messing up their life. And you can take this exact same thing that was used as a tool to destroy them to now uplift and build up your community. You gotta really take that serious, because all the money that you could potentially make from this industry, that's all cool. But I think the way that you could really make a difference and change the game is all good too. And I will tell you, at least what I found in my instance, that message and what you're doing for your community, it will resonate with somebody and they will come for that. It's not going to be instant. It's not going to be overnight. You're still going to have to fight, struggle for everything. But when people come into my store and they find out and they look and say, oh, you're from here. Oh, you're doing this. Oh, you're giving this money for that. Like they will choose you because people care about those things. And if you do it and you're authentic, it will work, right? And I would say if you do it, whatever you say, be authentic about it because there's only but so long you can hold up the facade, right? People are going to want to know, like, are you really doing this? Where's all the stuff? So again, this is there's somebody said in the chat, this is something I'm really passionate about, and I hope you are too. And that you'll be super successful.
Oh man, that's great. One question that I asked, and that really is great. Like I'm gonna have to sit back and rewind everything you just said because like people forget about that part of the cannabis industry. It's not necessarily all profit, profit, profit. Business owners, yes, we need to think about that religiously. But there is another part of the brain that needs to remember why this whole industry even exists and how you can further support your community. So question I ask every instructor at the end of our Q&A is, what are the advantages of taking your courses here at the CTA?
Oh man, the advantage of taking my course, man, you sitting here talking to the coolest, flyest cannabis business owner in New Jersey, man. Take my blueprint and that's everything you need. Nah, I'm just playing, but in all seriousness, I think that the way you will benefit if you take, I can guarantee you, like I said, what I have said really is the blueprint, is what I actually did, is what I actually believe. And I can say it works. If you believe it and you try it, it will work for you. Like I said, the community development part is so important. And if you can get that right, uh, the other stuff is the easy part, right? Like the selling weed, or if you know how to grow weed, that's easy, right? If you know retail, that's easy. Like making an impact on people's lives and making an impact on your community, that's what's big. That's the hard work. So, do it. Just do it.
Also here, as always, I appreciate you coming to the CTA, being an instructor, dropping all these gems, cheat codes, keys, everything. Like I'm so inspired, re-inspired by our conversation. I hope everybody that joined us today will be, again, this will be up on our portal literally in no time. I'm probably going to put it up there myself. And for everybody who's with us, stick with us next week. We are back with level 8, and we're going to be talking about safety and security, which is super interesting as well, because how are you going to keep your business secure, right? We're going to get into that. So Tahir, I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Thank you to everybody in the chat, and have a good rest of the week.
All right, y'all. Take it easy.